Well, guys, yeah, you're right. There's Jake the Steak Roberts, and you're listening to Top of the Morning.
Don't look no further. Baby, we're back, yeah. That's right, a little old school Baby Bash quote. Welcome to episode number 12 of the Top of the Morning podcast, presented by TopRopeReport.com. I, of course, am your host, Eric Ames, back again as usual, and this is our WWE Roadblock End of the Line preview and prediction show. And the guest this week, back for the fourth time? I'm not really sure. He's been on the show so many times now. He's essentially my co-host at this point. TopRopeReport.com columnist and results specialist Doug Berrill was in-house for this episode, not on the phone this time. Doug took a little ride over to the studio to join me as we break down every match on the Roadblock card, looking at the road heading into the show for all of the participants, what we see happening, and taking a look at what might go on for them in the future as we head into 2017, and of course the road to WrestleMania, which kicks off with the highly anticipated Royal Rumble, but we'll have a 6-week break from all pay-per-views before then, so hopefully WWE can provide us with some great content on Roadblock. Not so sure that will happen. Some of these matches have been a little bit thrown together. I'm probably looking forward to Sasha versus Charlotte the most, which, of course, that's the match that really gave this pay-per-view the tagline of End of the Line. So it should be the main event. I'm not so sure it will be. But here we are. Here is episode 12, the Roadblock End of the Line preview and prediction show. And, of course, the guest is TopRopeReport.com's Doug Berrill. Alright everybody, we're back once again with the infamous Doug Berrill of TopRopeReport.com, who has kind of become our pay-per-view prediction master at this point. Doug, how goes the battle today? It's pretty friggin' cold, my friend.
It is very cold, and it's a really cold day to be wearing shorts in Maine.
Doug is actually in-house for this session and not over the phone. And Homeboy shows up at my place in shorts. So, Doug, what is up with that? You do realize it's winter, right?
It's not only winter, we're getting a really bad cold spell. Tomorrow's going to be even worse. I was playing some racquetball this evening, and it made more sense just to come straight here rather than go home first, so.
Yeah, I was outside waiting for Doug, and he walks out in shorts. I think I might have to check his temperature. I think he's losing his mind here. But yeah, we got some pretty bad weather coming here tomorrow and through the weekend. It's supposed to be way down in the negatives, so definitely not looking forward to that. Of course, this is our Roadblock End of the Line preview and prediction show. But as we like to do throughout the year, especially this time of year, we like to talk a little fantasy football. And our blood feud continues into the postseason. Doug and I didn't make the championship round, but we're in the consolation bracket taking on one another. And I guess I'll leave the floor to you on this one, Doug, since I threw you under the bus the last time that we played.
Well, it's not looking good. It's not looking good for me. We do a 2-week format for each playoff round, so it's the cumulative score over 2 weeks. So we played last week, and a 27-point hole, that's kind of hard to overcome. One of the fun things about this league is that just about every round of the playoffs means something. It's a 12-teamer. If you play a lot of fantasy football, there's 4 teams for the for the championship bracket. There's a bottom bracket, and we have a last place trophy just to humiliate whoever comes in dead last, but we also have a consolation bracket. Eric and I are stuck in the first round of the consolation bracket, and if I don't overcome this 27-point deficit, next week I'm going to be playing in the only game that doesn't have anything on the line, so...
Yeah, part of me is kind of hoping that I end up in that game just so I can move on from this season because it's been so bad. But another part of me is like, well, I could really use at least a little bit of that consolation money to win some of my money back. But yes, in Doug's previous statement, if nobody picked up on that, he said whole, hard, and come all in one paragraph. So
I didn't even notice that.
All right, so just a brief fantasy football, I guess if you want to call it a minute. I'm not overly confident. 27 points is very easy to overcome. Anything can happen. Here I'm saying naughty words now, Doug. Look what you did to me. All right, before we get too pornographic, let's head into our main topic today, which, of course, this Sunday is the final WWE pay-per-view of the year. A Raw exclusive, Roadblock End of the Line. And I'm pretty sure the tagline is primarily because of the Sasha and Charlotte match, because that's really the only feud that's been going on for a while. A lot of the other ones have kind of not necessarily been thrown together, per se, but, like Rollins and Jericho, they've kind of been a spin-off of the Rollins and Owens feud. Same thing with Roman, the tag title match that was kind of thrown in last night at the time of this recording on Tribute to the Troops. So this is the first show that I can remember that we've done a preview for that we actually know what the kickoff match is going to be. So we are going to kick off with that, which is pitting Big Cass up against the Bulgarian Brute Rusev, looking for a little bit of redemption for his buddy Enzo Amore, who was blindsided in a hotel, courtesy of Rusev, while he was, I don't know if he was trying to hook up with Lana or what the deal was. That whole angle to me was kind of stupid, for lack of a better term, because if anything, it makes Enzo look bad. Like, all right, this woman is married. Are you really gonna do that? And then they had that part before he got attacked, like, oh, I'll just take my pants off for a second, and then I gotta get out of here. Like, I don't know. It didn't really make much sense to me. What do you kind of think about this feud?
Well, you just kind of said it because, and I think I've heard you say it before. You just said it now. I've seen a lot of other people say this. You can understand, okay, Big Cass is sticking up for his buddy, but how is Rusev the heel in this situation? When you've got a guy coming at his wife like that. I just said come again.
Yeah, man.
We're gonna have to change this to TV 14.
We're getting a little homosexual on episode 12.
It's bound to happen. Yeah, the interesting thing about this match is you've got two guys, and in Big Cass's case, other than when Enzo was out for a while, he primarily wrestles tag. The company really likes him. Behind the scenes, they really see a singles future for him. And so this is kind of one of his first big singles matches while Enzo is in the picture. And if they really believe in him going forward, you've got a guy that you want to make look really good. But Rusev, as I've said and you've said, really can be a main event heel. So I'm looking at two guys who I'm not going to say they can't afford to lose, because of course they both can afford to lose. But you've got two guys who over the next maybe 2 years, you really want to push as big time, main event level, singles competitors. So I really don't know what you do in terms of the finish here.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I could go either way, because like you said, they're so behind Big Cass. But I think the determining factor here is this leading into a singles run for Cass right away? And if he's staying in a tag team, then I could see Rusev picking up the win. Because, if unless Cass is going to stay singles, he can afford to lose more, I think, than Rusev. I personally, I think Rusev needs to win more, just because of, they really need more main event level stars on either show, to be honest. Whether there's been some rumors about him possibly being traded to SmackDown, which we'll probably talk a little bit more about some SmackDown quote-unquote trade stuff later. But yeah, he came out on the short end of the Roman feud, which was inevitable, so I think I'm going to go with Rusev on this one, just because I could see Cass staying in the tag team division, because I think the tag team division needs Enzo and Cass way more than, I guess, the singles division needs them as solo stars. So I'm going to go with Rusev on this one.
Yeah, I agree, and we tend to agree a lot. I'm going to try to go against the fray a couple times. I see a couple on the list that maybe I'll be taking a different route, but I can't imagine Enzo and Cass are done anytime soon, especially because they haven't had like their big time shot at the gold. Like they really need that, they need that opportunity to stand atop the tag division. I'm not saying that they're going to or they're going to win, but they need to be one of those two feature teams for a while before ever thinking about splitting up. Enzo and Cass have historically, nothing can touch them. In fact, this tells you that because Enzo and Cass still get cheered, even though Enzo's kind of the heel in some ways in this situation. I know that that's not the way they're trying to write it, but from anybody's perspective, that's how they would interpret the situation if it weren't for the fact that everyone knows Rusev is the bad guy and so on and so forth. So I will go with Rusev as well on this one. I think Cass can afford the loss at this point more than Rusev can. I think that Enzo and Cass will continue to team. They'll get their shot at the belts probably in the first half of 2017 at some point against whomever, and we're getting to a tag match later, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, I'll go with Rusev.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it will be a clean victory per se either. I could see something happening, similarly to Tribute to the Troops, where Lana she pushed Enzo into the steel steps, and caused a distraction. Like, I could see something like that happening, or, I wouldn't be shocked if it totally ended up in a schmoz either, and like a no contest or something like that. Just so that they can keep protecting Big Cass for down the road. That seems like a really, that seems like a WWE thing to do, so yeah, we'll move on to, of course we don't know the exact order of this, but I'm just kind of going in order of importance in my mind. And we have a triple threat match for the WWE Cruiserweight Championship. The still fairly new champion, the outlandish Rich Swann, going up against TJ Perkins and the Brian Kendrick. And I'll let you take the floor on this one, Doug.
I really don't have too much to say on this match. I think that they're really behind, and the fans are behind Rich Swann. He's so much fun. He's got tons of charisma. And when the Cruiserweight division came to Raw, it's starting to heat up a little bit more with actual storylines. You knew that they were good in the ring, but it was really lacking storylines and lacking that kind of charisma. Swann's got a ton of it. The fans like him, and I think he's too new of a champion to drop it here to two guys that have already been champion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I always thought and still think that they kind of swept the rug out from under TJ a little too early. It seemed like he was really gaining a lot of momentum. I know his entrance music was wildly popular on iTunes, and he's still getting reactions based off of his Cruiserweight title run earlier. But I definitely agree on the storyline part of it. I think a lot of the issues that WCW had with the Cruiserweight title back in the day is there never really was any kind of angles around it. It was just, here's another cruiserweight match, and then the title changes hands. So I don't really want to see any championship, let alone this one, kind of flip-flopping like it has been. I mean, it's only been 3 months since the cruiserweight division has been on Raw, and we're already on our third champion now. So I definitely like the incorporation of the storylines, and I will see a lot more of that on 205 Live. And as long as they can keep, at least two going at one, at the same time, similarly to like the women's division or the tag division, that's all you really need to keep people interested. So they've got this one, and then the other one has kind of been Arya Daivari and Jack Gallagher.
I was just going to ask what you thought of Gallagher.
Yeah, I've been impressed by Gallagher, and by all accounts, the company really likes him a lot too. I'm not like a big fan of whatever his little move is that he ties somebody up in a knot and just kind of punts him in the ass. I think that's a little unusual and a bit of a stretch of the realistic or reality part of it. But I like Gallagher. I think his promos have been pretty good, especially on Monday when he came out and said something along the lines of, "I'm a gentleman, so I'm hereby announcing my intentions to interfere in this match." I thought that was good. I had never heard that before. But yeah, back to this match. I have a really hard time seeing Swan drop it. Would it surprise me if it happened? Not really. Because I don't really... I feel like they have more baby faces that can challenge for that title than they have heels. So while I knew Swan was going to be the next guy, I didn't really expect it to be that soon. So I guess if Kendrick took the title back, I wouldn't be shocked, so that, Swan and Perkins and people like Lince Dorado or Jack Gallagher can kind of chase him. But Swan retaining, I'm not certain who would step up to challenge him next. I just don't feel like the heels in the Cruiserweight division are really that strong.
Yeah, I agree with that, and we're biased because we got an opportunity to meet him back in September. But you just brought up Lince Dorado's name, and he's one of those guys where with this new Cruiserweight division, he wasn't really in like the top 4 guys that were really getting a lot of airtime on Raw, but he's obviously been on Raw several times, and whenever I check out the feedback, fans are really they're kind of digging him from underneath. I think that he's in kind of a cool place right now because he's cutting his teeth. He's going to get his time on 205 Live. He's going to be on Raw every so often, and he's such a likable performer, and
not only that, but he's a great guy. He was a really nice guy.
I think that people can feel that. They can feel his authenticity, and he's a good talker, too. So I think that, guys like this, they're going to challenge for the belt. They're going to spend some time. I think Lindsay's going to get his opportunity sometime down the road, and when he does, I think the fans are really going to dig him.
Yeah, I actually told him this personally when we met him at however long ago that was. I can't remember now. But I told him, it's not really a secret that the WWE has been looking for a Hispanic star. And of course they tried Sin Cara, the original Sin Cara, which didn't work. They tried turning Del Rio babyface, which didn't work. But Lince Dorado has as good a shot as anybody else because A, he's a good guy, B, he's reliable, C, he can work, and D, most importantly, he speaks perfect English, which has always been the biggest issue for them. So they've been looking for their next Rey Mysterio, and he's got damn near as good a shot as anybody of getting it. So I'm definitely looking forward to see what else they do with him, and hopefully they'll give him some more opportunities to actually speak, which he got a short little video promo on 205 Live this week. So we got a little bit of a taste of what he can do on the microphone. So we're both going Swan on that one, as usual. Douglas and I are skiing with each other on our picks so far. If you don't understand that joke, I'm not going to explain it to you. You'll figure it out. So moving on, one of the matches that really kind of started building some steam this past Monday on Raw. We have a 10-minute time limit match, which is pitting the not traded Sami Zayn up against Braun Strowman. So, to me, I feel like this is the most obvious one of the night. I mean, you could make a case for maybe one other match being fairly obvious. But if you're going to have a stipulation like a 10-minute time limit, clearly to me, it's going to lead to a draw. Like, there's no other conclusion to reach, because that's the best way that you can keep Braun kind of moving in the direction that he's moving without taking a loss, but you can also have Sami look strong without picking up a win. So I don't know how you feel about that, but to me, this one is blatantly obvious, which I'm sure next week, by the time it happens, I'll probably be dead wrong, but that's the only way I see this one going.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I've been doing all these old WCW pay-per-views on the website, and these time limit draw matches. When we're not talking about Iron Man matches, we're talking 15-minute time limit matches. And
which, for those that don't know, for example, the old WCW World Television Championship, the majority of the title defenses for that on TV were only 10 or 15 minutes, which sometimes they kayfabed on that a little bit, just for some clarification.
Yeah, and so draws were not uncommon, especially like you were saying, if you've got two guys that you want to continue moving forward on, and you don't want to hurt either one of them. Just recently did a couple for the television title between Lord Steven Regal, most people would know him these days as William Regal, and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and they took some of their matches to draws, and they put on really good matches. I'm kind of torn on draws because, sometimes it feels like, well, come on, who likes a tie? But if the performers do their job, then it can come out, you can elevate two people at once. So a lot of times with those time limit matches in WCW, when they really made a big deal about the time limit, one of three things would happen. It would either end in a good match with a draw, but if there was a pin, somebody would either win just before the time limit, or they would make the pin, but guess what? They just ran out of time.
Yeah, the 2 count would happen with 1 second left, and then the 3 would happen with time run out or something like that.
Yeah, so that was the most common thing with matches like this, which you don't see as many matches like this these days. I think you made a really good point on the fact that it's probably going to be a draw.
See, the television title ones, that makes sense because that was always the stipulation with that championship. But this one, there's no title on the line, so why are you even giving this a time limit if it's not going to end up in a draw? You know what I mean? Like, that makes no sense to me whatsoever. Like, I get that Foley explained, he doesn't want Sami to basically get the crap kicked out of him for too long or whatever it was. But this is just a one-on-one match, so there's no need to put that kind of a constraint on it unless it's going to end up in a draw, you know what I mean? It's just the only logical conclusion that I can come up with.
Well, it's very bizarre, too, because Braun's been crushing everybody, and I don't think he's worked a 10-minute match.
No, half of them have probably been less than 3 minutes.
Right, yeah. So, here's the one thing that I will say about Sami Zayn before I make my pick. Before we started, I was saying this to you. They did that whole deal where, Mick Foley worked out a deal with Daniel Bryan to trade him to SmackDown, and then he came back and said he made a straight-up trade for Eva Marie, and it turned out to be just a ruse, just to motivate Sami because, I'm worth 1,000 Eva Maries or whatever, he said verbatim, which is true, but I was telling you, it got me thinking, that's exactly what they should have done. Because a lot of fans agree that Sami Zayn is much better suited to be on SmackDown, especially if SmackDown is going to be, more about wrestling, which, that's debatable. whether it is at this point. But Sami might have a better home on SmackDown, and I said that's exactly what they should have done because Eva Marie has so much heat, and she takes a lot of crap from a lot of people for obviously being there more for her looks than her in-ring performance. And so not only are you moving Sami to where he should be, but now he's got this gigantic chip on his shoulder, and all the fans feel like they have a chip on their shoulder on his behalf because he goes over to SmackDown thinking, really? Really? This is how much the company values me. And so now his whole shtick with, the underdog gimmick, he goes to SmackDown with a big chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, I feel like that would have been, of course, lots of people very much dislike Eva Marie for many different reasons. I'm more open and willing to kind of give her a chance because we still have not seen her in the ring, even though she was on SmackDown before she got suspended. But the angle was she wasn't wrestling yet. There was always some kind of an excuse. So I'm more willing and open to see what she can do. Do I like her personally? Not necessarily, because I believe that she's just kind of using WWE as a springboard into something else, which I think we're starting to kind of see some of that, where she's picked up some acting roles, which is why you haven't seen her come back, by the way, even though her suspension is up, because she just filmed a movie. But she also just did like a fashion line or something that was just released. However, I think Raw's women's division, and I've said this multiple times, needs more talent, because outside of Charlotte, Sasha, and Bayley, you really don't have anybody. So I think Eva would have been a great addition over there, especially if Sasha ends up retaining. I'm not necessarily certain that happens. We'll get into that later. But if Charlotte is moving away from the title picture and it's held by a babyface, there's no better person really to step up as a heel than Eva Marie. Unless you want to plug Emma or Emelina, whatever she's going by, right into that, which I don't think you do. And I think it's still too early for Nia Jax. However, for Sami, it would have been perfect for him to go to SmackDown. Like I was saying to you earlier, SmackDown has a real lack of top main event talent right now. And it would have been the perfect opportunity to elevate Sami into that spot. Possibly have him kind of fill in as like I say fill in, but you know what I mean. Kind of like a transitional challenger for Styles following the Royal Rumble, assuming he still has the title, which I think he will, heading into WrestleMania. That would have been a great spot for Sami, because you don't want to go back to Ambrose there. You don't want to go back to Cena there. By all accounts, Undertaker is going to be the opponent at the Royal Rumble, but I don't see him winning the title. So who better than Sami Zayn to step in and fill that spot? People have really cooled on Dolph, myself included, which kind of hurts me to say, because I still feel like Ziggler is this generation's Shawn Michaels without the push, but at this point, I've kind of given up on him, to be honest. So I thought that actually would have been a great trade for both sides, and I was very disappointed when it ended up being kind of a motivational tool for Foley to fire Sami Zayn up. So yeah, I'm going draw on this one. What are you going with, Doug? I'm actually sitting next to you this time, so I can twist your nipple or something if you don't give me an answer.
I think draw is the safe answer. Just to be different, though, I'm gonna go with something else. I'm looking at one of these WCW finishes that I was talking about earlier. I'm gonna go. Something happens with about 10 seconds left, and Sami schoolboys him just to shock everybody. He gets up. I mean, Braun might get up and kill him after. Just absolutely punish him after. But I'm gonna go with Zayn and just kind of a shocking last second win.
Yeah, the only reason I don't really want to go with Sami is because, of the reports of Braun taking on Roman at WrestleMania, and I feel like you kind of want Braun to go into that without a loss, whether it's a surprise or whatever, so that's another reason why I'm going to go draw on that one.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm going against the grain here. I've got to do it once in a while.
All right, so the next match on the card that we've got is the latest match to be added, which, if you saw Tribute to the Troops, Cesaro and Sheamus won a Fatal 4-Way #1 Contenders match for a Raw Tag Team Championship shot. And that is, of course, against the now record-breaking Tag Team Champions, The New Day. This one is really tough for me because everything tells me that the New Day should end up facing Enzo and Cass in kind of like a big WrestleMania match. But I just have this weird feeling that this is where the reign ends, and I don't really have any logical reason for it. I just kind of have a gut feeling like New Day's already broken the record. It seems to me like they're really, gonna stick with Cesaro and Sheamus as a tag team because they finally started getting along now. So I don't see them breaking up anytime soon. As much as I don't feel like they should be the tag team champions, I think it's gonna happen this time. I really do.
Yeah, thank goodness the record is over, because the New Day deserves a ton of credit for success for the company, making money, selling merchandise. In 2016, they have to be one of the bigger selling, merch teams or individuals of 2016. They were red hot. They were entertaining for the majority of the year. It was a combination of a couple things. There's a statute of limitations to everything, and some people were starting to feel like their shtick was getting a little stale. They needed to change something up, but then it became clear that they were chasing Demolition's record, and there's nothing wrestling fans, oppose more than feeling like something is being forced onto them. And so I hated to see it happen, because those guys were and are and have been so good this year, but I definitely felt a certain percentage of the crowd starting to either get impatient with or sour on the New Day. And now
I would agree with that, definitely.
Yeah, and now that the record's broken, all bets are off. And
I don't think that really had anything to do with the record, because I'd be willing to bet a good majority of the fans today probably have no clue who the hell Demolition even is.
Right.
But at the same time, WWE does have a tendency to try and take away things like records from people who, I guess, controversial would be the word. AJ Lee's Divas title record was broken rather quickly. Obviously, she didn't do anything controversial, but by way of marriage, they kind of wanted to get her name off of the books. And for those that don't know, Demolition Smash, who's known as Barry Darsow, is actually a part, or was a part, of one of the recent concussion lawsuits as well. So I think that probably had a lot to do with it. If it was a record held by, say, the Road Warriors or something like that, then I think that record would still stand. Or even if it was like the New Age Outlaws or a team, that's a lot more well-known. I just don't think a lot of people even know who Demolition is, fair or not. I don't know, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I remember you talked about a few months ago when they were having their program with Gallows and Anderson that there were a couple sensible spots where it would have otherwise made sense for them to drop the belts. And
I still think that was a huge mistake.
Yeah, and it did a lot of damage to Gallows and Anderson, and they've really had a hard time recovering from it. So in terms of like making sense of the booking, it started to, once Gallows and Anderson failed to take the belts off of them, it started to feel like, man, they're really gunning for this record. So I think a lot of fans started feeling like, all right, you're really trying to force the issue now rather than make the most sense. And so that's why I said, thank God this, the record is done, so now they can just book the way it would make sense to book.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, too, is I think a lot of people would agree with me. Like, I am so down on Raw's Tag Team Division, and I have been for a while. Like, there's nobody left, really, other than Enzo and Cass. That's why I keep kind of by default going back to, all right, well, you got to have a big babyface matchup at WrestleMania because who do you got left? I'm not a fan of these mixing singles competitors together. You know, Cesaro and Sheamus have been okay, but I don't look at them as a legitimate tag team because I feel like they just were thrown together because they didn't know what the hell else to do with them. I mean, they got to do something with Raw's tag team division and really quickly. And I don't mean Cesaro and Sheamus winning it, even though that's my pick. The best thing that I think they could do right now is to bring up the Revival. That would absolutely be what I would do because they've got nothing left to do in NXT, in my opinion. So the next logical conclusion would be for them to come up and possibly challenge the New Day. If they end up retaining, which I'm still going with Cesaro and Sheamus, mainly because I don't think it makes any sense at all. So I think that's what they're gonna do. But even then, if Cesaro and Sheamus win, you're still kind of having to retread all the other, like, who do they go after next after New Day gets the rematch? You're back to Gallows and Anderson again because none of your other teams are legitimate. Golden Truth is a complete joke. The Shining Stars have a lot of potential in the ring, but for one reason or another, they never seem to catch on. And that's it. Like, I can't even think of who the hell else do you got, really.
Yeah, that's a good question. My brain, and for the same reasons, I did not like the Cesaro and Sheamus thing. I thought it was goofy, and I thought it was just gonna fan out after maybe 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever, and then they would go back to a singles feud against one another. They've made it work about as well as they can make it work. I mean, they've made it all right. But they're, like you said, they're not a pure tag team, and so even if they were to take the belts off New Day on Sunday, how long is it going to last? And like you said, who's next up? For a lot of the reasons you said, my brain is telling me to go with Cesaro and Sheamus. I'm gonna just go ahead and stick with the New Day because I'm kind of interested to see what happens if they win again. I want to see how the crowd starts to react to them, if they win again.
Yeah, I think it all depends on really who steps up to the plate to challenge them next. That's really the big question mark. There's so many question marks surrounding Raw's tag team division as a whole that it makes it really hard to kind of pick either way.
I think that we're both going to have the same answer to this. And to be clear, when New Day drops the belts, I don't want them to just be done. Right after they drop the belts, I think I want them to work as a group more.
It's kind of similar to the club. I could see that happening. I think that's what should happen. I don't think they should just completely split.
Right, but one day everything comes to an end. One day they're going to split up, and I guarantee you have the same answer that I do. When they split up, who do you think has the most interesting return to singles run?
Oh, Big E.
You think Big E?
I think Big E, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we actually do have different answers then.
Are you going Xavier?
I'm going with Xavier. Kofi's probably the most technically gifted, if you will. But, Kofi's been around for a long time.
Yeah, he has said in the past, and if you've seen the Table for 3 episode with him, where he contemplated, what would be next for him after New Day, and he mentioned he probably would hang it up. And I definitely could see that happening.
Yeah.
But I think Big E could be a really big star by himself.
Sure.
Xavier is by far, I would argue that Xavier is probably the most talented guy on the entire roster. He's so he's really underutilized. Underrated would be what I would call Xavier. Primarily because of his size, but it's like anytime he is in a match, it's almost like, all right, well, he's in that match so that he can take the pinfall for the New Day. That's kind of how I feel about him.
But then when you watch him, you kind of forget how good he is because he's in there so infrequently. I was actually thinking about this the other day. I'm thinking, how does the New Day split up? You know, when that day comes. I'm not saying it's coming soon or anything like that. When they start to dissolve, why do they start to dissolve? And I was thinking, you know, how about Xavier Woods getting a little irritated with the fact that Kofi and Big E are, you know, working all the matches and kind of taking in all the glory. And honestly, I don't know if that would make him the heel or the babyface in that split.
Out of all of them, I think that Woods would make the better heel out of the three of them.
He's such a good talker.
Yeah, he's such a great talker. I think that he could make that work. Whether the fans would buy it because of, you know, his popularity with up, up, down, down might be a little more difficult, but I think out of any of them, you know, if you do make Big E do that, it really kills his personality, which makes him stand out, because then he's just kind of this big monster who's mowing everybody down. You know, similar to how he was when he really debuted alongside Ziggler and AJ Lee. So, but yeah, I see big things for the former Big E Langston in the future, and I think the company would agree with that. But I wouldn't want to do anything to Big E that dumbs down his personality and his sense of humor, because everybody knew that he had it before he even was on the main roster, and it took him so long to really be able to show it that I don't think I'd want to take away from that. I think Xavier could stay over because he is such a great talker,
right?
As a heel, which is funny because back in his TNA days, which I admittedly actually used to watch, I don't have the time to now, nor if I did, I feel like outside of the Hardys, it's been kind of a garbage product for a little bit now. So I wouldn't watch it anyway. But he was there as Consequences Creed in the X division, which is basically a cruiserweight division, and he was phenomenal in the ring. But I don't ever recall hearing him talk, so I was super surprised to see how charismatic he was in speaking. So yeah, I think we kind of went in a roundabout way, but yeah. All right, I'm going Cesaro and Sheamus on this one. Is that where you were going? I don't even remember now.
That's where my brain is, but I gots to be different. So I'm going to say the New Day. I'm interested to see what the fallout, I'm interested to see what the fan reaction will be if they win yet again.
All right, we're starting to disagree a little bit. I'd push further away from the couch from you, but this is more of a love seat, so we can't really go too much further away. So, a couple more matches to go, and appropriately, the next one on the card.
Speaking of love seat.
Speaking of lug seat, of course, the inside joke among the TRR staff is how much of a man crush Doug has on one of the participants in this match. And, of course, we're talking about Seth Rollins versus Chris Jericho. So I think it would only be right if I let you start this one. But if you get rock hard, just kind of point that thing the other way.
Yeah, we can pause. I'll go use the bathroom.
Doug has to go fire off a couple of knuckle children before talking about Chris Jericho. So.
Yeah,
but no, go ahead.
Oh, man, the day that he retweeted my article, man, if you could have seen my reaction, you would have laughed. I am a big Chris Jericho fanboy, have been for 20 years.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, he earns it. Can I just say this about Chris Jericho? I know I'm incredibly biased. He turned a clipboard into one of the most over things of 2016. I mean,
I would argue out of his, whatever it's been, 20-plus year career, this very well may have been his best run that he's ever had.
Yeah.
He did have a great run in 2008, which people will remember was, of course, his widely successful feud with Shawn Michaels. That would be in the conversation, but this one is definitely up there. So I can't disagree with you on that.
I mean, not only did he make a clipboard one of the most over things of the year, and I know that people love him, so he's still getting cheers, but he did it as a heel, too.
Right.
I mean, That's just crazy to me. So now we've got Seth Rollins and Chris Jericho, which, like you said in the intro, is kind of the undermatch of the Owens Reigns title
Yeah, it's
match.
definitely a spin-off, I would call it. A kind of a spin-off.
It's four guys who are all involved with one another, and you got the title holders. Maybe at the top of the card, I don't know if it's been decided whether Owens and Reigns are finishing the show, whether Sasha and Charlotte are finishing the show. I'm guessing Owens and Reigns will.
That would be my guess as well.
Yeah. So now you've got, and honestly, actually, I wouldn't be surprised, even though it's a higher profile match, to see this match maybe open the show.
I could totally see that as well.
Yeah, because you like to start hot too.
Yeah, like we said, or like I said in the opener, this is not the lineup that we expect. This is just kind of order of importance in my mind. So yeah, they always like to kick off the show with a big match. I could see Sasha and Charlotte opening the show. I could see Rollins and Jericho opening the show as well.
So I guess the question becomes whether or not Kevin Owens gets involved with this match, and if he does, in what capacity? Are he and Jericho really, heading toward a fine, just really breaking it off, or were they playing everybody? I could totally see those guys taking it in either direction, and I have no idea. Without Owens getting involved somehow, some kind of distraction, some kind of anything, obviously the safe choice is Seth Rollins. If Chris Jericho was getting paid by the pedigree, it'd be taken a lot. He's definitely been the king of taking Seth Rollins' pedigree in the last month or two. And obviously, a lot of fans know that Jericho, with his band commitments, he's on a month-to-month deal right now. And so it's really, really up in the air as to when his last match is going to be.
I think he's sticking around until at least Mania.
I think that would be fantastic, and I hope he does. And if that's the case, that really makes me confused as to what could possibly happen, because a lot of people foresee an Owens-Jericho split and an Owens-Jericho match. The question would be when. And so if Owens gets involved in this match, is he helping or hurting Jericho? That's my big question.
Right. I think on this one, I wish I had some kind of a horn or something, because this is going to be my bold prediction. What can I do for oh, I know. Sound the alarm. We'll go for the bold prediction on this one. So I think it's obvious, to me anyway, that the split between Jericho and Owens is legit. I mean, I could definitely see where they're kind of playing everybody and making it a farce, but I think, I say legit in kayfabe terms, like I don't think they actually hate each other. But yeah, I think it's for real, and I do believe that Jericho will get a title shot at Rumble. That's kind of where I'm going with it. So my bold prediction is I think Owens gets involved, and it doesn't, like, nothing comes of it. Either Rollins kind of negates the interference or whatever. But I think this is where we see Triple H come back, and it ends up costing Rollins the match, and Jericho wins, propelling Jericho into, I guess, a number one contender status, which then leads into the Royal Rumble. So I'm going to go with your boy. I'm going with Chris Jericho on this one. But I think this is where we finally see Triple H, because I don't think that Rollins would be bringing him up like this if we weren't going to see him popping up. And I feel like the Royal Rumble would be a little bit too far away for that, because that's like 6 more weeks of him calling out Triple H, and I just feel like people would get kind of bored of that really quickly and be like, all right, is the game finally going to show up? Where the hell is he? Like, he needs to show up now. So that's what I'm going with. I'm going with the Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla. That
is a really, really good prediction that I wish I thought of before getting
Like I said, sound the alarm for all you Vikings fans every time you get a first down and they do that stupid whatever that is. That will be my bold prediction alarm from now on.
Man, oh man, that sounds
Shout
really...
out to Dave. I know he'll like the Viking prediction horn.
That's a really good prediction that I really want to get behind.
No notes, people. All off the top.
Oh, yeah, just totally shooting off the top. When I'm thinking about outside interference, I only had Kevin Owens on my mind. I know that the Triple H Rollins match is looming, but I guess I was so invested in Jericho and Owens that I wasn't even thinking along those lines. That is a really...
Yeah, I think that you need to... You know, it's been a couple of weeks of him calling out Triple H, and I don't think that you want to just have him calling out Triple H for like 8 weeks straight without Triple H actually showing up. So you give him a spot appearance here, let him go away for a couple more weeks, have him show up again, and then you can kind of work into the Rollins and Triple H match, which we're all assuming is going to be WrestleMania. It makes the most sense. But you can come up with different ways other than just having Rollins come out for 8 weeks in a row of being like, come on, Triple H, where are you, Triple H? I just feel like people would get sick of that, so... I'm not 100% confident in that, but like I said, sometimes you gotta say, or come up with something a little different, so that's where I'm gonna go.
Oh, man. I was thinking Owens is
gotcha,
gonna cut.
Dougie.
You did.
Not
man.
as good as Nipple, but I gotcha.
It's nothing ever is, and I don't even care to explain that joke. Oh, man.
I think I kind of porked you, didn't I?
You did, because I'm thinking Owens is going to cost Jericho, and Rollins is going to win, and that's how Owens and Jericho are going to get involved. Man, you sold me.
I mean, that makes sense, because
Yeah.
Rollins has been talking about, I need to get through Jericho in order to get through Owens to get to Triple H. So it's possible that they could go that route with it. So, like I said, I'm not 100% confident in that, but I'm just kind of throwing a curveball at home plate and hoping it doesn't cross over the middle and just kind of nicks the edge, I guess.
All right. Well, I never run the table on predictions.
I think that's the truth.
And
I ran the table on the last one, so.
So I have no pride on the line if I get a bunch of these wrong. So I walked in tonight saying, okay, I'm gonna pick Rollins. So I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it with a lot less confidence than I had walking in.
I mean, we could always put a little bit of a wager on the line,
I don't want to.
Perhaps the loser has to get a little Rochambeau. I don't know.
Oh my word! So I'm gonna go ahead and stick with Rollins just because I know I just inevitably will never run the table, and sometimes the things that I think are gonna happen don't happen. But man, that's a really good argument.
I mean, it couldn't be any worse than your WrestleMania picks.
That was horrendous.
I went 6 for 6 on TLC or whatever it was. I got all of them right, so I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good on my predictions right now.
I've done all right with the fall pay-per-views, but for anybody who doesn't know, and I know I think I've mentioned it before, and I even wrote about it on the website. But just for anybody who doesn't know, there were 11 matches on the WrestleMania card. I believe it was 11, and
let's just say Doug's picks were. Hot garbage.
They very much were. I went bold where I shouldn't have gone bold, and the company surprised me in areas that I wasn't expecting to be surprised. Going into that Triple H Roman Reigns main event, I was 0 for 10.
To be fair, I don't think... I think one of them will give you a mulligan on, because nobody in their right mind picked Zack Ryder. So,
True.
So that one was pretty far out there. But there were some really weird calls. Like, I think a lot of people thought AJ was going to go over Jericho, and that didn't happen.
And in my defense, I walked into WrestleMania thinking that the New Day's match against the League of Nations, I thought that was a title match. I didn't know it was I don't know where I missed that. They
promoted it as such, and then they kind of like... I can't remember if they flip-flopped or if they did away with it last second or whatever, but Well, yeah, that was a really tough one to try and pick. I didn't do overly well on that one either, so
Yeah.
I didn't. It wasn't a near offer, but it was still pretty bad. So, all right, so we're doing pretty good on going different this time around. I know a couple of the other times we've been pretty similar on our picks, which sometimes it's okay to be. I mean, you got to use logic when you're picking these, and we've been watching long enough and have pretty much seen it all, so we're pretty good at kind of determining what's going to happen. So we've got two more matches left in our Roadblock predictions, and of course they're both title matches. We don't know which one will end the show. It's very possible it could be either one. In my opinion, it should be this one because it's basically the reason why the show is called End of the Line, but it is the not technically first ever, but first ever for the main roster, a 30-minute Iron Man match, and yes, they are calling it still an Iron Man because the ladies want it to be called that. A 30-minute Iron Man match for the Raw Women's Championship, with the champion Sasha Banks taking on Charlotte Flair, whatever she's going by, Ashley Flair, I don't know. Seems like they keep changing her name. This one, to me, because they've been swapping the title back and forth so many times, it's probably the hardest one of the evening. That's what I feel about it anyway.
Yeah, a lot of people are feeling like the title's getting a little flippy, and so I think that in terms of who's next up, which a lot of people think maybe Bayley, that it would make more sense to go back to Charlotte, but then people might complain about the title being so flippy. It's a tough one. The big question with these two, after spending the majority of 2016 together, and by the way, definitely my favorite for feud of the year.
Yeah, feud of the year. If you don't agree with that, I don't know what the hell you've been watching. Anybody that is saying that Sasha and Charlotte has been boring, I don't know where you get your drugs, but it must be pretty strong because this has been by far the biggest year for women's wrestling that there's ever been. Just to throw that out there.
Yeah, definitely. And so the big question, end of the line, right? Where do you go from here? And so, like I said, if you want the heel babyface dynamic, maybe it makes sense for Charlotte. With Bayley being the next one up. Now, even though they're both babyfaces and they're both very much friends,
in storyline and real life.
In storyline and real life, Sasha and Bayley have proven they can go at a high level. And so if Sasha retained, then you would say, well, what does Charlotte do? And again, now we got a babyface, heel scenario, but maybe Charlotte breaks it off with Dana Brooke. I don't know.
I think a lot of the same questions that we were posing for the tag match in the tag team division really apply here because Paige is gone. Like I said, outside of Sasha, Bayley, and Charlotte, who do you really have that's established? You really don't. They were building up Nia as a monster for a little bit there, and then they've done nothing with her. Like I don't think we've even seen her on TV since at least Survivor Series. So I don't know. The booking overall is very confusing to me, and at this point, I feel like if they've already swapped the title back and forth so many times, what's one more?
Right.
So I think you have to go with Charlotte here because Bayley's just the next logical choice. Like if Sasha retains, who's going to step up? Right. You've got Nia Jax, you've got Dana Brooke, and then looks like Emelina is going to be a heel. But are any of those really of the caliber? Like Emma can get it done in the ring, but if she's trying to establish a new character, I don't think you throw her right into a title picture.
Yeah, probably not. It's funny, we were talking about the Sami, Eva Marie.
They need Paige back. Let's just throw that out there.
They do need Paige back.
It's going to be a bit, but
and Paige,
she's crazy, And for all we know, she could quit tomorrow, but they desperately need her.
Yeah, and she can play either role, so she can come back as a heel or a babyface.
Plus, I'd give her a couple of roles, too.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about that Sami Eva Marie trade that was teased, but obviously didn't happen.
That's why I thought it would have been great.
Because then if Sasha retains, a lot of Eva Marie already has heat. But imagine the heat if she walks into Raw. By the way, all red, right? Kind of makes sense. And people would be like, well, she doesn't deserve to be in the title picture. But maybe she walks through the door, arrogant as can be, and just declares herself a contender for the title. Not only does that give Sasha Banks something to do to move on from Charlotte, but man, the heat on Eva Marie would be tremendous.
Yeah, I feel like they feel like they don't have really much for options, No matter who wins this, I'm just going to go out and say that I think we get a little bit of a retread from WrestleMania last year, where it's another triple threat, but this time it's Charlotte, Sasha, and Bayley.
Yeah.
Because I just don't know what else you can do. You kind of would have to go back to that, to at least Sasha and Charlotte. It's so tough, they
especially
unless you're going to have a call up, but even down in NXT, you don't have anyone that's ready outside of Asuka. And if the reports are true of Mickie James going to SmackDown, then you really are in a bind, which Mickie should end up going to Raw, to be fair, because SmackDown, they're in great shape in terms of the females, and they don't really need it. They're doing a great job of building people up. Whoever the hell is writing Raw, start watching SmackDown, for the love of God. Figure it out.
Yeah. Yep. No, I I completely agree. I think I've picked a couple that kind of go against my brain, just in an attempt to be different and knowing that my brain is not always correct. But I think we're probably going to go with the same one on this one because I'm leaning towards Charlotte.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Charlotte. I could totally see a scenario where Sasha wins, Charlotte kind of moves away from the title for a couple of months until WrestleMania, and then Sasha just kind of defends against, like I said earlier, but against some kind of fill-in people for the next couple of months, because you've got Royal Rumble, which, by the way, since we're talking about Royal Rumble, let me address this, because I see so many quote-unquote reports online that have no links, no sources, and it drives me insane. And one of them is about a women's Royal Rumble.
I've heard
People, GTFO. Leave the Royal Rumble alone. You don't need another one. Why would you dip into that well again? There is absolutely no truth to that whatsoever. There's only been rumors, so don't buy into it. That's my little rant. However, I could see Sasha taking on people such as Nia Jax at Rumble, and then I believe the next Raw pay-per-view is not Elimination Chamber, but Fastlane, which would be in March before WrestleMania. Maybe she faces Emelina there. I don't think you could throw Alicia Fox in there. I think she's way too under the radar. But yeah, ultimately I think that you have to go back to, if not the triple threat at Mania, at least Sasha versus Charlotte again. But yeah, I'm going to go with Charlotte on this one. Because you can at least have her feud with Bayley for a couple more months, and then reinsert Sasha back into the picture for Mania. So that's where I'm going to go as well. All right. The last match that we have, likely to be the main event, we're thinking anyway. Of course, for the WWE Universal Championship, the Universal Champion Kevin Owens taking on the United States Champion Roman Reigns. And I will let you kick off this one.
Oh boy. This one's interesting. Like I talked about with Rollins and Jericho, there's a little bit in play in terms of, where those two stand and does the other one get involved, and if so, to what extent. I said a couple months ago when they both had them that I wanted to see Kevin Owens and AJ Styles both take their belts all the way to WrestleMania. And honestly, I still stand by that. If Roman Reigns wins, the fans are... I know you don't do everything to appease the fans, but I just can't imagine the kind of nuclear heat the company's going to get from so many people if he takes the belt off of Owens. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I haven't quite figured out how it's going to happen. I think that there will be some kind of interference, whether that be Jericho interfering and accidentally costing Roman the match, but I have a really hard time believing that they're going to go with the double champion thing. I feel like Rollins doing it last year is still kind of fresh in everybody's minds, and I think Roman kind of needs to move away from that main title. Like, I feel like this is just, like I said, kind of a fill-in, you know?
Which is weird for a title match.
Yeah, it is totally weird. But I don't like that the U.S. Championship has kind of become a prop for Roman. Like, he has done nothing with that since winning it. So I think that he really needs to at least get some challengers for that and move away from the Universal title. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly how it happens, but I really have a tough time believing that Owens drops the belt here. I'm with you. I would like to see AJ and Owens hold on to both of them until WrestleMania. And for Owens, I think the logical choice, if he's healthy enough, would be for Finn Balor to come in and challenge for that. So I don't think you can do that if Roman's the champion. I mean, I think you can, but I don't think you necessarily want to do that.
Yeah, I think that is the match for WrestleMania, and I think the big thing for Kevin Owens is, like we talked about, nobody know Jericho's month to month. We don't know when he's going away, and we don't know how long they're going to stay together. It's very realistic, like you said, that they could have a clash at Royal Rumble over the title. I think the big thing from this match on to WrestleMania, maybe he works with Jericho, then he works with whomever until Balor comes back. But Owens really needs to start like reestablishing himself as like just a dominant force. He's so good in the ring. He's so entertaining on the microphone. He's got so much. He's a great champion, and you know the whole Jericho angle was one of the best of 2016. They were constantly one of the most entertaining parts of the show.
I think I know where you're going with this.
But once he breaks off from Jericho, he needs to reestablish himself as somebody who's not a chicken champion hiding behind a friend.
Yep.
So,
as entertaining as it was, it almost made him look weak as a champion because he never picked up a win without help.
right.
So I think that he needs to start doing that. I'm not certain that it happens here because for one reason or another, they still want Roman to keep looking strong as much as a lot of the fans dislike him, which I'm not really a big Roman hater. I've always said that he really just needs to kind of change up his offense because throwing 100 clotheslines is pretty boring in one match.
Right.
But other than that, I'm fine with Roman. However, I think that Owens needs to not necessarily be built back up again because he is the champion, but he does need some strong victories, and I think that he'll get some clean wins in that feud with Jericho because Jericho will be like, yeah, I'll totally put him over. You know, he won't care. He'll put him over clean. It don't matter to him. So yeah, I don't think that happens against Roman. However, I do feel like Owens is definitely going to win this. I would be flabbergasted if Roman took the Universal title. I would be absolutely shocked.
And I think the backlash would just be hot.
Yeah, personally, like I said, I'm not really...
Yeah, I'm not a Roman hater.
I'm not a Roman hater at all, but I would be borderline pissed if he took the Universal title, to be honest, because as much... I'm a big fan of Owens, but it makes no sense for Roman to win it again. This would be like his 4th title reign this year?
Right,
or whatever the case may be.
And short of a rematch with Owens, where does Roman go with it? Because we know exactly where Owens can go with it. He can go to Jericho, and then he can go to Balor, and it makes total sense, and it would be very good.
Yeah, I think this is one of the cases where they need to not do anything just for the sake of having a surprise. They need to just stick to the script on this one. Let's not do anything too I don't want to say the F word, but too effy. I know you know what I mean. Boy, Julian, that's really effy. For those that watch Trailer Park Boys, that's my Terrible Bubbles impersonation. So yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for us this week. And, of course, we will have live in-progress results of Roadblock on Sunday, which you can check out at TopRopeReport.com. And, of course, we'll have another edition of Doug Berrill's column, the Doug's Day Device, coming up soon. So, any kind of a preview? I know you said something about you kind of wanted to do some 2016 year-in-review stuff. So is that what we're going to be seeing next from you?
Yeah, that's what I did last Friday. The next one will be next Friday. We're kind of right smack in between them. So for both columns in December, kind of wanted to reflect on the year. I had a lot of different ideas for categories. Really went back and forth in my head. And honestly, I'm still toying around for next week. I usually decide by Monday or Tuesday what I'm going to do for sure. But last week it was the feud of the year, which, like I alluded to earlier, Sasha and Charlotte were atop that list. Next week, I definitely want it to be a 2016 in review type of piece. I don't know if I want it to be moment of the year, or match of the year, because some of those may pull from feud of the year, but it's definitely going to be some kind of 2016 in review piece.
And for those that didn't hear that, Doug also just said pull. So
I'm using a lot of innuendos there.
I think you're sexually frustrated, Doug.
I don't
you gotta hang out with the wife more. Okay, Top Ropers. That was episode 12 of the Top of the Morning podcast, the Roadblock End of the Line preview and prediction show. Definitely looking forward to that on Sunday, which would be tomorrow night. And of course, we will have live in-progress results with off-the-top reactions provided by yours truly, beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with the kickoff show. And then, of course, the main show will begin at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the WWE Network. So make sure you hashtag #GetOnTop if for any reason you are unable to watch and would like to know what is happening. Just go to TopRopeReport.com's results page, click refresh every once in a while, and you can get up-to-the-minute results and reactions from the show. Of course, as per usual, I would like to encourage everybody to keep reading TopRopeReport.com for all the latest and greatest from the world of professional wrestling, from only the most reliable sources anywhere on the web. We do not feed into any of the rumors, and we only report on things that have, some substantiality to them. Which, of course, if you listen to the episode, you heard me give a little bit of a rant about some other Twitter accounts. I can't even call them sites because sometimes they give quote-unquote reports that have absolutely no sources whatsoever. You will never, I repeat, never, ever see that on TopRopeReport.com. So definitely make sure you hashtag #GetOnTop to be left or to be kept into the loop. Of course, along with the Roadblock results, we also provide live in progress results for every WWE show, including Raw, SmackDown Live, NXT 205 Live, and we, of course, will be providing them for the upcoming and recently announced United Kingdom Championship Tournament, which will be happening in January, so definitely keep a lookout for that. Of course, we've got great columns from the entire TRR staff, our awesome pay-per-view flash series every Saturday morning, And then more episodes of Top of the Morning coming up in the future. If you like what we do here, definitely check us out on YouTube and SoundCloud, and you can also subscribe to the show on iTunes. If you would like to follow us on social media, TopRopeReport.com is on Twitter at TRR Wrestling. We are also on Facebook at TopRopeReport.com with no dot, and we're also on Instagram at TopRopeReport.com with no dot. A little bit of Porky Pig. It's been a long day for me today, so I'm stuttering like Bubba Ray Dudley back in the day. If you would like to check out my tweets that don't involve any stuttering, I am on Twitter at TRR_EAmes. That's EAMES. And of course, Doug is on there as well, as we said before, at TRR_Doug. That's DOUG, as in Douglas, and not as in I dug a hole. So, until next time, my friends, make sure you hashtag get on top for all things TRR, and we will catch you with another episode coming up in the future. We're going to probably take a couple of weeks off here for the holidays, unless something pops up for me. I'm still trying to line up some more great interviews, and of course we'll definitely be doing some more pay-per-view predictions, and maybe we'll get into some WWE Weekend Review stuff in the down the road, so definitely be sure to be on the lookout for that. Until next time, my friends, as always, just keep in mind, it's not how hard you get knocked down, but it's whether or not you can kick out.
But you don't know how. Play your hand, you lost it, it's too late now.